A typical night out for Wisconsin's legal adults usually involves a trip to a bar. But this was no typical Wisconsin night. New York comedian Louis Black was performing. "You are not alcoholics," he reassured his audience. "You, and my head is off, are professionals." Naturally, the home crowd responded with both laughs and shouts of pride. Of course, in the moment, it is easy to laugh off how famous Wisconsin has become for its drinking. After all, it's part of our culture. But doesn't having such a dangerous habit, so popular throughout our entire state, make our state dangerous to live in? It's no joke that every day in Wisconsin, including the night Louis Black performed, someone dies due to an alcohol-related auto accident. And that number does not include other alcohol-related deaths, such as those involving boats, ATVs, snowmobiles, hunting, and alcohol poisoning. At some point, we must ask ourselves, what, if anything, should be done to discourage the drinking culture in Wisconsin? By examining first how deeply ingrained this culture is in our society, and second, the overall negative effects of drinking, it will become obvious that Wisconsinites must be educated to avoid the dangers and learn to drink more responsibly. The first side of this story needs to be that of the drinkers themselves. One of the most famous hotspots for drinking is our capital city, Madison, Wisconsin, home of the Badgers, and thousands of college students at prime drinking age. In fact, based on a poll given to University of Wisconsin students in 2009, 72% reported having engaged in drinking since coming to college. The poll also showed that freshmen were more likely to binge drink than upperclassmen, which was defined as having 5 or more drinks in a short period of time. According to Mark Wolf, a UW senior and member of the Campus Alcohol Task Force and City Alcohol License Review Board, most students who engage in what would be considered binge drinking don't consider themselves to be drinking at harmful rates. Now, although colleges may appear to be breeding grounds for drinking, the consumption of alcohol is hardly limited to the college crowd. Because drinking is part of Wisconsin's culture, its followers are just as diverse as, say, Wisconsin sports fans. It affects every age, gender, race, and class of person. In fact, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, over 2/3 of adults in the state are considered casual drinkers. That is the highest percentage in the entire U.S. territories, including the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Wisconsin is also ranked #1 in adults who binge drink and adults who drink daily. And that's just the adults. We already know that college freshmen are not afraid to drink, but what about the much younger? 24% of high school students polled in 2007 said that they had their first real drink before the age of 13. With that kind of early exposure, it is easy to see how this culture is persistent. It's one thing to know how large the drinking population in Wisconsin is. It's another to understand what it does to the lives of not only those who drink, but those around them. Let's go back to the UW students who were polled last year. Over half of them admit that drinking caused them to do something that they later regretted. Not a huge surprise, since alcohol inhibits not only your senses, but also your judgment. Unfortunately, these regrettable actions can have major consequences. 1 in 3 students said that drinking caused them to miss class, and 1 in 4 had unprotected sex while drunk. In 2006 alone, 2,600 teen pregnancies were alcohol-related. And let's not forget that young people aren't the only ones drinking. Millions of families suffer from the effects of alcoholism. Alcoholic parents are more likely to be abusive or neglectful, and far more likely to make poor decisions. Poor decisions like drinking and driving, which endangers not only the driver, but everyone else on the road. In fact, in Wisconsin, 45% of traffic fatalities are alcohol-related. Living in Wisconsin means putting your life on the line every time you take to the streets. You don't have to be an alcoholic to be hurt by a drinking culture. Hopefully, we've all now realized that the drinking culture in Wisconsin reaches so many people in so many different ways that there can't be any one magic fix. But through education, changes can be made. First, our minors need to be taught to abstain from alcohol, or at least drink more responsibly. Responsible underage drinking might be a bit of an oxymoron, but it would be a huge improvement to the third of high school students who say they have already partaken in binge drinking. Some attempts in Wisconsin are being made to raise awareness by discussing the effects of alcohol in public schools and driver's education curriculum. The University of Wisconsin has also discouraged reckless young drinking by educating new students on the subject. In the past 4 years, they have seen a decline in binge drinking, though there is still a long way to go. But by strengthening the process of education, we can hope to see change. Aaron Brower, Vice President of Teaching and Learning at UW-Madison, understands this challenge. "To be honest," said Brower, "it's one of those things where we just need to stay persistent and persistent and persistent." Persistence with education is exactly what will bring a new wave of more responsible drinkers into adulthood. Dealing with the current adult population of drinkers could prove to be more difficult. The habit and culture of drinking is so deeply rooted that trying to eliminate it altogether would be a frivolous and fruitless attempt. We tried that once. It was called prohibition, and it failed. Instead, we need to make it as easy as possible to behave like responsible adults. Many towns in Wisconsin now have free safe ride programs where intoxicated people can call for a no-cost ride home. Some bars are even installing breathalyzers, which patrons can voluntarily use to verify their ability to operate a motor vehicle. Strongly encouraging the use of these tools can save lives. Regardless of what Lewis Black would have you believe, the drinking culture in Wisconsin is no laughing matter. It has negatively affected the lives of drinkers and their loved ones, and it has endangered the lives of all of Wisconsin's citizens. But it has a solution. By educating the young on the overall effects of drinking, and by making adults more self-conscious of their own personal drinking, we can make actual progress towards a less dangerous drinking culture. Being called a professional drinker should not be a compliment. Let's act to change the reputation of our state, and instead be known as fun-loving people who drink responsibly.